What's going on, guys? Hope you're well. Hope you're all having a good weekend. Welcome back to another crypto outlook. Now, from the previous outlook, whilst the market was very, very choppy, we stuck to our guns and said following that sweep of the 100k floor, we were likely going to rally back to all-time highs, and to the very least back to the $108,000 to $110,000 region. And in the previous video, I gave you a very specific zone, which, to be precise, was $109,500 to $110,500. And that level has once again been struck perfectly. Now the question is, what happens from here? We have not taken out the all-time highs. We have created a perfect double top. Now, I've been out of tune with the fundamentals and with any of CT over the past week or so, and mentally I feel fantastic for that. Now, most people here, no doubt, will probably be very, very, very bearish, I would say. I'm not that bearish yet, to be honest with you, and I actually think we're going to take out these all-time highs. And what I think is happening here is the market is essentially deviating from that level I provided at the $110,000 region to pull back down. What I then think is now happening is the market is going to bring in shorters. The market is pulling back to punish some of those late longs, I feel. And what this is likely gearing up for is an all-time high wipe, possibly next week. Now, to be honest with you, we're not entirely in clear territory, and anyone that tells you they have 100% clarity in this area, which is ranges within ranges within ranges within ranges, it's depressing, to be honest with you. There's still some things we have to leave open and consider. There are still dangers, there are still risks of breaking down lower. There are many great dangers in this current area. And I'm looking at it now because, well, there's a lot we need to break into in this video. Now, the key in regions like this, as always, is to understand what the logical play is. And for me, the logical play with where we are is breaking above all-time highs and going, for BTC especially, above $112,000 and more notably into the 115k region, I think is very possible, and it could very well happen next week. The big question on the cards right now is what happens from there. People will, if we see that, I'm not sure if you can see this entirely, but if we see this, people will start to scream bull run. I think there is a window of opportunity here, not for the alt season, but for at least a short-term altcoin catch-up. The key to that happening is going to be the BTC dominance dropping. And right now, it's in a very critical level. So it may not be the catalyst for an alt season, but what could very well happen is BTC takes out the high, reverses down. As that happens, that could be the initiation of a BTC rotation, which could then send XRP and all the other altcoins I've covered up a little bit higher. Now, what happens from there? For me personally, there's still a risk of a black swan event. Now, the key to understand is what we said in the previous video. If a black swan is going to happen, it is either going to happen from this very region, if not, if we wipe out the highs. You need to be very open-minded in these levels because we are really lacking clarity here. The market has been a hot mess and a lot of people are struggling right now. And that's the beauty of this. You don't actually need the answers. As long as you have a suitable positioning at suitable prices, you understand the risks of going lower in the worst case scenario and understand where those risks can take place from, you're good and shouldn't have any issues. The key is to understand the risks. And what we're going to be doing in this video, once again, is assessing the prospects of how we can possibly get down into the 90 to 80k region, what could be the catalyst area, and what the consequences may be. But in the short term, with a quick glimmer over the charts, I'm hoping we're going to start making a recovery back to the $112,000 region, and possibly even higher in the short term. I think it could be next week. Now, I'm not going to record this video until the daily candle closes today. It's currently 11 p.m. here in the Innovation HQ in Dubai. So I'm gonna call it a night. I've got a few more YouTube videos for you to cook up as well. And I'm gonna re-record the chart section in the morning once we've got the daily candle closures, setting you up not just for the weekend, but for the week ahead as well, where I think some explosive movements can start happening. As a final reminder, when the market starts to move like this and there is a significant amount of congestion, consolidation and choppiness, do not stress. This is always an indication the market is brewing up for some very explosive movements. That's what that price action represents. We're not going to be like this forever. We will eventually break these ranges. The question is what happens when we break these ranges? And we're going to set out to discover that today. So jumping onto the charts, we have seen another phenomenal outcome, mostly from BTC at this current point in time, as not everything is moving entirely synchronized. But my God, what a perfect strike from that zone once again. And now that we've seen this zone, like I said in the thumbnail and the title of this video, which may surprise some of you, considering I am the infamous FUD master, I think we're going higher. And as a matter of fact, I think we could even break this zone here. Now at this point in time, we're going to start off with the monthly time frames and just begin to assess what everything looks like. And I think the answer to many of these coins, which are absolutely plagued with indecision and consolidation, is going to be found mostly from BTC. Even the total market cap has an open interpretation, but I think BTC actually has the cleanest price action. It's not clean at all, but in terms of what we have to deal with right now, I think BTC is offering the cleanest. So looking across the board, first of all, at these monthly time frames, bearing in mind it is the 5th of July today, so we are in the very early days of this candle open. Now looking across the board, what do we see here from a monthly candle basis? We can see the total market cap has printed a huge doji. Literally from point 1 to point 2. This was the upside region and the downside region. BTC, a doji from the key support we covered for that classic FUD shakeout event. Like we said, there was a very high likelihood we were going to drive higher from that point back to all-time highs, and we have seen exactly that occur. Ethereum, exactly what we said, struck into the zone, back into a short-term zone once again, and the overall key region we were targeting from down here in those previous videos a little earlier on within the year. As we go back to that monthly time frame, Doji, Ethereum, Doji, very strong Doji actually on Ethereum. And XRP, well, this is a puzzle of puzzles. We have Doji, 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 currently a Doji. I think BTC will likely be the answer to all of these right now. And the total market cap, if BTC moves, will provide the sign for total, which could provide the sign for altcoins. Now, the first thing I want to mention before we delve into the optimistic side of what I see and what I think is going to happen, which is actually exactly the same. We've essentially moved into flowing along a journey over these past few videos to help you guys decipher the short-term shakeout risks. And I will always cover those risks. I don't care what people say. You can see when they come through. By me covering that possibility, it enables you guys to take trades and it enables you guys to protect yourself with your overall portfolio. And since things have progressed in this manner, I've actually started delving into leverage trading myself. As you guys know, I've been a spot-only trader for literally the past 5 years or so in particular. I delved into leverage trading with a bit of BitMEX back in the day. You guys will probably remember me being in the BitMEX chat room whilst opening some rather significant trades. And I've never touched leverage since, with crypto anyway. I've been a very patient spot buyer, buying and selling over the course of several weeks and months. And whilst I have obviously now ramped up my spot positioning with over $150,000, I've started providing a lot more short-term analysis for the Innovation members, and my God, are we seeing trade after trade after trade come through. And even this recent drive on BTC into this level here was called, even Ethereum as another classic example, flowing into the market. And why I'm saying this is because I am more focused right now in these messy conditions on shorter term movements. And the more I've been tracking these shorter term movements, the more I've almost flowed into understanding what could be taking place in this mess. I am truly in that locked in moment right now and phase where I'm almost just beginning to call every single move, almost back to back to back to back to back. And I hope that continues. But using F as an example, we took a long over here, closed out here, re-entered here, took profit here. You may have seen on X, I had a short set at 2,640. Unfortunately, we fell just short of that. The members mostly managed to get in, but I fell $4 short of my entry. And unfortunately, we got a lovely move from thereafter. But fortunately for the members, they managed to get into that. And even with BTC, and the key to this is understanding what could be happening. Now, you may have seen on socials as well, specifically on Instagram, I gave this level for the members. This was corresponded with the Ethereum lows, and my target was to drive up into this region with a possible pullback. Now, with where we currently are, going back to the ideas of a doji, there is an open interpretation here on Ethereum and XRP, a massive open interpretation of what can happen. If we look at this chart on BTC, and before we even do that, go over once again to the liquidations which I have shown a couple of times throughout some of these outlooks. Let's ignore the short-term liquidations, and I'm talking on a 48-hour basis. There are strong liquidations present on both sides, of course. Naturally, the more price congests, in particular tight ranges, the more people will try to gamble on either side. So naturally, the more you see congestion, the more there will be stronger liquidations on both sides of the current trading price. At the moment, there's mostly more to the upside. What most interests me here is what has amassed over the course of a month onwards. And we can see, whilst of course there is adequate liquidations down below, the majority right now, the strongest wave of these, are situated above around 110,865 to $111,000. If we go to the 3-month time frame, we can see huge waves up here of over $1 billion of liquidations situated at the $111,000 region and beyond. 6-month time frame, huge. You can clearly see where the bulk of this is. And I think before we even consider a real significant move to the downside in terms of 90K or 80K, I think the market is going to have one more explosive move. This may be my final, my famous last words, but I don't think that's the case. I think with this much outstanding here, in the billions of dollars of short liquidations, then we correspond this with the markets and where the market currently is. If we look at this clean, raw, simplistic, first of all, on a daily basis, right now, a double top has formed here. If I quickly hide this zone, that's a war crime. That for me is a clear indication the market is attempting to do one simple thing, not to mention these highs here as well, and of course this high up above. Very, very crucial region, and we will get rid of this particular zone for now. Although I think we're going to hit this level, I'm going to get rid of that for now to illustrate what is likely taking place here. The market, as always, building a journey for you guys. Shorters never catch the top. It's very unlikely a lot of people would have captured that top. Most people jump in short between these bearish candles. So if we start to envision, just like we can see here on these liquidations, it becomes evident, especially from the price action, where most people would be taking shorts. This, of course, will be stop losses above this high, especially at the bottom of the bearish candle, bigger positions over there. Simultaneously, shorts from around these levels between this high to that high. There is essentially a whole bunch of empty space situated, excuse the doodles, above these regions. And the liquidation estimations already tell us what is visibly evident from the charts anyway. A whole bunch of people have shorted here. And because of this previous reversal, where more importantly the bulk of the most recent shorts will be situated, are screaming to be fulfilled and liquidated and swept from the market. And I think this bearish candle here, this time, is a trap. The force of this move, considering we have not swept any of these highs, is a liquidity generating mechanism. And beyond this high, this is now added to the overall bulk that is situated there. Therefore, if we look at the weekly time frame, whilst things are not necessarily evident, what I said at the time was if we take out this low, this is an overall range, don't forget this. We flush this range low to a crisp target struck, which we covered on BTC, and of course the total market cap paired. So we're now trading within this overall range, and of course the immediate target to focus on is the upside of this range now, which is situated above here. So I don't just think we are due to do this move. I don't think it's going to happen this week. I think this will take place from next week onwards, and we will take and wipe out this high. If we're going to hit 111, one would assume we would take this out as well. with some form of severe force. The key behind these areas and the psychology behind these areas is, of course, always the same. As we chop about in this level, knowing that a lot of people are conflicted here. You know, it hasn't been easy to read, but I'm being a lot more direct here in terms of what I think is going to happen next before we get to any real downside dangers. And of course, you already know really and truly what the downside dangers are. It's evident. We think it's going to be this region to 90k, call it 90k to 80k. But right now, with this shakeout that we saw and gave to you guys, this big movement upwards, again, giving you a psychological journey of what's likely happened, has led to a lot of people getting shaken out here, especially with the fear of US getting involved to escalate those World War III tensions. And that's quickly blown over from what I've seen. I've not been watching the news. I haven't been on crypto Twitter at all. So to give you a true gauge of CT sentiment, I don't have an idea. I'm going purely off technicals here. But I think this shakeout and this quick reversal to the upside, which we thankfully got exactly as we wanted, has led to a lot of people being sidelined, a lot of people being liquidated, and probably quite a few capitulations. Because of course, mentally and emotionally speaking, when you see a psychological floor break like this, with sheer aggression, which was quickly swept up, and what do we tell you? In fact, what did me and Bernie cover in one of our recent psychology series videos? The classic red bearish candle. Now, why do we not use candle colors? Because this was our target. And price struck this with the classic bearish Maribozu, paired with fundamentals. If that was not the cleanest reversal indication in the world, I don't know what the hell is. That is where you look in retrospect and go, hold on a minute. Bad news, massive candle, bearish, broken support, barely any wicks. Why did this reverse? That's because this was the trap, and it's played out well. Now, in the short term, if there was to be a pullback and we validate what I think is going to happen next, of course, the real significant level is back down to these lows in the $100,000 territory. In fact, at this current point in time, to adapt this a little bit further, you'd want to be looking more towards these key lows over here, more towards the 103 region in the short term. But I have a feeling we're not going to get there. As a matter of fact, I think a lot of people that are waiting for the dip will likely jump in somewhere in particular. And that's the key behind this journey I'm trying to build. I'm going to quickly adjust this just ever so slightly. These are not the levels that I give members. It's just a rough guideline for you guys to follow. But just looking here right now, resistance, support in the most basic form, just to show you a kind of additional sign alongside what we're looking for. Now, look at what we've been dealing with these past few weeks. It's been insanity. And most people here are probably thinking a huge reversal is about to come into play, but I think this may be an indication from the offset that at the very, very least, hopefully from next week onwards, we could see a big start moving higher. Now, the reason for this is because the monthly time frame, in my opinion, needs to take out these highs. This doji has not yet been liquidated. And whilst there is key downside supports situated in this threshold around 94 down to around 90, I don't think this is going to be hit without some form of upwards drive. And I actually think we are going to go slightly beyond the $115,000 region. In fact, the more I look at this, I believe that BTC will be doing something along these lines on a monthly time frame. Now, the complexity of this is the immediate move I'm looking for. I think something like this will probably happen. The key to understand this is what the implications of this may be when we look elsewhere. This is the difficult part that is not entirely as readable. And of course, our job as traders and investors is to not try and predict something you can not yet read, but to try and gauge the different scenarios that could occur with this. So in a direct call, I think we're going to break these highs, possibly from next week onwards. My only question here thus far is what the hell happens to everything else in this predicament? Now, this opens a gate. This opens the door and unlocks numerous rather beneficial opportunities. I think if we see this move, this will happen before any major downside. And the psychology of this is beautiful, in my opinion, if we see this. And in fact, it will probably take place from around here if it does. Should this happen, those who have not bought in this area, I'm going to use the highlighter tool just to do some illustrations. People who got shaken out here are still skeptical, I believe. The congestion in this region is building up shorters. Now, of course, before anything significant happens, just as a bit of education in line with what we always aim to do here, what does the market do when a bunch of shorters are congested in the market? Before it actually drops in the desired direction, the market will often seek to pursue, hunt viciously, and punish those individuals before it actually moves in their favoured direction. And I believe from pretty much this current high, or even from there, let's say, where the double top has formed, I think something like this is going to happen. The fact we have been here since May, with a slow trend down, I even think this trend line here is an illusion to trick people. And the liquidation will come through. Now, once this happens, I would say there is a great chance that from a monthly basis, these individuals who got shaken out here and now believe will go in lower, will of course jump in beyond these highs. What often happens in these areas, as we also saw in 2021, this is when most people buy because they deem it, for some strange reason, the safest time to buy. And if this is achieved in rapid succession with an aggressive bullish candle to ideally move into the next few weeks, whether it happens immediately next week or over the course of the next few weeks, it could happen next week, and I feel it will at this point in time. The aggression of this candle, similar to this one, will bring people in aggressively. But this will simultaneously wipe out all of the shorters situated in this area. So this will bring everyone in long, specifically for spot buys and of course leverage, which creates a catalyst for a larger wipeout. Now, as we know historically, and a little lesson for you guys as always, is the best time to see something like this is during these all-time high areas, unless it leads to a much bigger room to our secondary levels. I'm not going to rule this out, by the way. Where we are is a fine line, a delicate balance between squeeze up and dump or absolutely bolster. I can't figure out how high it's going to go yet. I have a certain few regions mapped out for members, which I think it will go to beyond the 115k region. I'm giving you 115k as a reference, as a rough area to assess. But I do think we can plausibly go higher, and this will also play a role in what the outcome could be. But from this particular region, we know right now BTC dominance is at one of the highest levels it's ever been. Now, you may have seen this chart I provided on X as of recent. I think we are currently trading already in a very, very important critical zone for the BTC dominance. From what I've seen, whilst it's quite a conflicted opinion across the board from social media and what I have seen over the past few weeks, some people think we are about to die. Some people think the dominance will never go down again. Some people think alt season's coming. Some people think there's another black swan. Some people think we're going to the moon. There's all sorts of different opinions. What I do know, however, is a lot of people no longer believe in an alt season, which is a good characteristic to at least get some form of short-term pump here, aka a drop on the dominance. This zone you need to watch very carefully, up towards around 67%. I think if BTC pumps here and the dominance pumps up, it could be a trap. And that could allow the dominance to sell off aggressively in line with BTC. Where if we are even going to remotely consider the plausibility of coming into this level or even this zone, the dominance probably needs to drop first. And this brings me to the next point of what happens here. The difference is with BTC is the total market cap is still trading in relatively bearish structure, so to speak. It's got a very clean retracement and currently, overall, I would say a lower high. But I think if BTC is going to pump, look at where this is. The same way I use this as a reference for everything. How did I even give you guys the idea that this would form a top? How did I give you guys the idea of this and this, all of which I've provided you in the videos? The total market cap for me is the clearest reference point to what is likely an outstanding area, and likely a gauge of when things may not be as they seem. The complexity with this level is putting these side by side. BTC is dangerously near its all-time highs, whereas the total market cap is nowhere near that level yet. So if you assess where BTC was at its highest point, it was here, around $3.5 trillion. The difference is this time due to many altcoins being somewhat lower in theory to where they were. We've seen a bit of a recovery on some. But if you assess where these altcoins are, this has actually contributed to the BTC dominance being lower than it really should be, because BTC has almost taken out that high now. Now, as you guys know, I believe the dominance will push up to 3.7. And if we're very bloody lucky, we're going to get to 4 trillion. Now, the question here is, with BTC in this area, forget this for now, focus more on this region, which is the next move I'm looking at. What happens to altcoins here? Is there a possibility that if this happens, the dominance drops? As we can gauge here, there is not much to gauge or see. There is only so much one man can do with this many dojis, and a doji like this on Ethereum similarly opens up different pathways. But it is entirely possible that this push up on BTC could allow the altcoins to slightly catch up between both of these zones. We could even see a very large wick, similar to what we saw over here in 2021. And if BTC is to hold this area and at least begin to drop down back to 100k, if not 90 at the very least, I would argue that would be where something like Ethereum does what I've been saying in previous videos. And because of where this is now situated, this makes it somewhat possible that F could breach the 3k zone temporarily. This also means that that key region I'm watching on XRP, right now in this area, I think if altcoins will jump up, XRP will at least go back to $3. If we're lucky, it goes to $4. But I think with XRP, to make this clear, coins that look like this that have already taken out their highs, I do believe they have a capped lifespan. I believe they've done the bulk of their movements already. And if XRP was to go in for another shot at new highs, I would say somewhere in the $4 region would probably be where it does what BTC essentially does. And if it was to breach, it would probably just surge up and take out the high and close back down below. Otherwise, at the moment, I would be looking more towards $3. And I think this could be crucial because we want to understand what's taken place here. And why I think an alt season is remarkably likely is because not many people really believe in this much longer. But furthermore, because if you actually think about this logically, I've bought other coins for a reason. The coins I hold do not look like XRP or Ethereum. And in fact, even Ethereum is actually quite low still. And this is why I believe F will eventually surge. This may come after another black swan. In the previous video, I said if we're going to get a black swan, I think we are going to see this after we start to achieve this very region right now, factoring in a wipe of the highs. I think if something bad is to initiate and quickly wipe out that FOMO and bring a reversal down to here, we need to scatter these highs, ideally first. And what I want to see in theory is almost a miniature alt season, where alts pump. This gives the illusion of an alt season, because right now people are kind of in this conflicted stage of, we're not going to get it ever again. What this could logically do is give altcoins the springboard up, maybe to $3 on XRP if we're lucky. This could then allow these altcoins to fall from a fairer standpoint in somewhat symmetry to where BTC in total are trading. Because right now there is no equilibrium, so to speak. There is no compatibility in price ranges. Altcoins are down, BTC is higher. Now, if you actually think about this logically as well, this is perfect because it almost flips people with their goldfish memory. As you've seen many times in this cycle, people are going alt season, no alt season, alt season, no alt season, alt season, no more, it's over, dead. People are changing like the wind, and there's only so many times people will fall for those narratives. I think if we can see a bit of life after this much congestion, it would be enough to bring in a huge amount of exit liquidity for the real trap, even if it's short term, to be deployed before the next major leg higher comes through. Now, piecing this element together, I feel right now a sharp sell-off on BTC, and in fact, I think the key to all of this materializing and manifesting for altcoins is BTC to reverse. We know the rotations begin when BTC slows the hell down. This means looking at what the most money is currently tied within. I would say XRP is a big runner, Solana's a big runner, and even Ethereum's a big runner. We've got Sui and a few others that have done very well this cycle as well. But BTC is the king of them all, and we can see by this dominance that the majority of capital allocation is in BTC. Now, when people panic and say, oh my God, it's never going to drop again, like, what do you mean? We've been at these prices several times before, in fact, higher. But this is perfect because sentiment is beginning to fizzle away from the concept that altcoins will recover. This is why I've bought I've bought 3 altcoins in particular at the moment, and this is why I've put over 150k into these particular coins. Because if they do see even the slight recovery, it's probably 50 to 150% in the short term before something bad happens. That is, of course, the promising side. If BTC does not do anything remarkable and altcoins do not catch up and the dominance goes stronger, that would probably create the all-round bottom for the alt season to begin. The key here is to understand that money is in this asset. And right now, money remains in this asset as the dominance illustrates. For the money to flow, the dominance must drop aggressively, or at least just drop at this point, because this is where Ethereum and various other coins begin to surge, because this tells us money is flowing down the food chain. Money is leaving Bitcoin and trickling into the altcoins. If you consider where BTC is trading and consider this price also means the most money in history will be made from Bitcoin due to the highest price it's trading at. So when people say there's no altcoin, this cycle is different in many ways, but simultaneously it's exactly the same. The only difference is more concentrated power has been derived within Bitcoin. And I almost view it like a boiling point where there is so much money and focus on Bitcoin that it's causing a deterrence from the rest of the ecosystem. So once this thing boils and pops, the money exits BTC. So the only reason these coins are not necessarily, I feel, as high as they should be is because all the money is tied up here right now. And what do you think happens when the money exits this? When you look at where most of these are, what's the worst that could happen if we do see this sort of predicament? Let's say a pump and then dump. Even if it's back down to 80. In fact, if they jump up high enough, we can still go to 60 before potentially progressing further. But if that happens, there's no need to fear because there will be so much money circulating, the most amount of BTC profits on records. And how will we know that confirmation? If BTC starts to drop after liquidating the highs, if you're a whale, you're an institution, I always say this in all the videos, if you're looking to sell Bitcoin and you are going to drop Bitcoin with excessive force, you are going to need to sell billions of dollars. Well, the easiest way to generate exit liquidity for altcoins and BTC is to pump them. So the retail jump back in and get excited with a fresh all-time high. This is the optimal framework and environment to generate the liquidity to exit the market with sufficient profits. The consequences of that rollover is one of two things. Unless it immediately rotates into altcoins could even exceed if BTC drops back. If not, the profit taking drops the altcoins as well after a catch-up. They could slump back down to a lower standpoint. This then makes altcoins significantly more favorable to reinvest and rotate from an institutional basis. Simultaneously, the whirlwind and roller coaster of events would scare so many people, specifically if backed with another black swan to the 90-80k region at least, that if altcoins dropped as a consequence after everyone has just jumped back in, that would then become the capitulation region as a result as well. Now, those are the many things to consider. And of course, if I am wrong here, the likelihood is we just start dying straight to 90 to 80k. But I do believe at this point in time, something is due to happen here that is going to elevate this significantly further. And as I said, from down here, and even in the midpoint, if we see this, we're likely going to go back to the highs. And my targets are currently set for a breach through these highs. I even think that doji that we currently see this week is an indication in itself of great danger. When the market compresses like this, so close to those highs without liquidating, it is often the biggest catalyst for some form of explosive liquidation movement to the upside. So we're going to keep it short and sweet for now. You need to understand the risks, but right now I'm actually not too concerned about the risks because I do have a feeling, as I've been saying over the past few videos, altcoins could pleasantly surprise you if we see this scenario. I don't think it's going to be the alt season, so to speak, but I do think there's opportunities, and this is why I've positioned myself in a handful of coins for the best form of trades. Simultaneously, it's why I've been jumping in and quite frankly killing it with the leverage side of things at the moment as well. A lot more short-term trades in the innovation markets app as well now. We are combining leverage with spot plays. We're picking up the aggression because I think opportunities are coming. And I think if we can get this high wipe from here, those opportunities will begin to flourish very, very quickly. And if we can see even our short-term targets fulfilled, I should be able to squeeze out 150, 200k profit, I reckon, in probably a few weeks if all goes accordingly. And I will obviously show those positions after. If we do get to the profit taking region, I will never show them before because that's for members only. But if we can definitely see targets struck, I will still be flowing through these videos with the after results, but I can never show the current results. But overall, in this rather conflicted area, I actually now believe, despite what we're witnessing, there is more clarity. And I'm going to stick to my guns here and say that we're going to take out those highs and we're probably going to breach 115,000. I'll be back again, of course, next week with further updates, and I'm also working on a ton of new YouTube style videos for you guys as well, just talking to the camera, different forms of topics of crypto psychology, mindset, and so many other exciting ideas as well. We promised you guys we're coming back to YouTube with a bang, and we're not going to let you down. We used to do this all the time. We were doing this many, many years ago, weekly updates for the market, and this is exactly what we're getting back to, and we're not going to fail on that. So more importantly, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video, hope it's been informative, and hopefully you have been paying attention because quite frankly, back to back, I've been giving you guys some fantastic opportunities through these videos as well. And if you're paying attention, you should be benefiting from these videos highly, not just from a technical basis and a profit basis, but also from a psychological and mindset basis as well.